How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Bodacious Rant. I hope everybody's doing good. I hope you got your sweet tooth ready, because we're going to be talking about a very sweet movie. Pun intended by every state. Is it good? I don't care. Not my problem. Actually, I kind of would be because I'm the one saying it, but it doesn't matter. Anyways, so we are talking about today one of the latest movies to grace our presence during this holiday season. One that contributes to... I feel like it's one of those movies that nobody really talks about it much, but it's part of like a good portions of childhood. I don't know if it still is relevant now, but like when we were growing up, that was one of those things like we definitely read in school and watched the movie afterwards. That was always fun. But anyways, we are talking about the latest movie, which is Wonka, starring Timothy Chalamet. Shimmy y'all, shimmy yay.
Exactly.
It's also got Olivia Colman, Sally Hawkins, Keegan-Michael Key, Rowan Atkinson. He was a big one, and a bunch of other good actors and stuff like that. Plenty I've never seen before. I think they're more European or English actors, which is cool. But other than that, this is a non-spoiler review as usual. So please do not forget to give us a like, ring the bell, and of course subscribe. We appreciate you all, and we want to keep the ranting going as usual. So, yeah, this is essentially a prequel to... I would say it's definitely more closer to Gene Wilder's version of the movie, because there was the original movie that came out in 1971 with Gene Wilder and those other actors and people. And then there's the newest one, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, that came out 2005-ish? 2006, I think? That sounds about right. I remember that one in middle school, and that one was weird, but that's because Tim Burton had it, Johnny Depp was in it. Now that one was definitely a little bit more closer to the book from what I remember. So it has its, they both have their trade-offs. But this one is basically about young Willy Wonka, who is coming back from his adventures overseas and now wants to set up his own chocolate shop and eventually factory. And but he also has to compete with a chocolate cartel, which is basically his enemies from the book. Prodnose, Slugworth, Fickelgruber, and he has to deal with other bunch of zany characters in the process. So that's pretty much it. It was good. I think Timothy Chalamet, he was a solid choice. I don't know how I felt about the singing sometimes. I think it was definitely a movie that this had a lot of throwbacks and a lot of references to the very original one with Gene Wilder, which isn't a bad thing. I thought it was okay. It was entertaining. Definitely a family-friendly movie, which I kind of forgot is the point of Willy Wonka, because I was kind of going into it thinking it's going to be a little bit more serious and a little bit more adult, but it's definitely still more directed to families and stuff, which isn't a bad thing either. But what were your overall thoughts of this movie, Bern?
Yeah, I mean, this was one that when it was announced, I had basically no interest in. It was like, okay, there's been seemingly a trend in Hollywood lately where it's like, okay, we're going to get some prequels and we're going to get origin stories about these characters that we can find out why they are the way they are. And a lot of the times it's like, I don't really care, I'm not interested in like figuring out like what makes them tick. Like they were fine in the movies that they were in. So when they announced the Wonka thing, I was like, okay, this is probably one of those things no one cares about, nobody asked for. I know I did it. I'm fine with the Gene Wilder original movie, and I do also enjoy the Tim Burton Johnny Depp one. So it's like, I don't know if I needed this, but then they started coming out with the announcements. Timothy Chalamet as Wonka. I was like, okay, I'm interested. I'm a fan of Timothy Chalamet. His work lately has been really good, and it's a solid pick, like you mentioned, of playing of what you could think of as like a young Gene Wilder. So I was like, all right, that's pretty interesting. But the big one for me was when they announced that the director for the movie would be Paul King. And that is, for people who don't know, is the director of Paddington 1 and Paddington 2, which are two fantastic movies. If for anyone who sees it, anyone who's seen it can tell you that. If you haven't, go check them out right away, because there are some really, really great movies that, it's crazy. I don't understand how they're so good, but they're really damn good. So, when that was announced, I was like, okay, now you've got my interest. So coming into that, I had a little bit of excitement. The trailer for it was decent enough. I was like, okay, this looks like it could be fun, but I can't really tell until I watch it. But, watching the movie, This is a very charming and very delightful time. I really, really enjoyed myself with this, coming in with sort of, a trepidation, but also hoping that it was good. And I came away really, really liking it. Like you mentioned, it's a very family friendly movie and much more in line with the tone of Paddington 1 and 2. Not so much of, the original Willy Wonka or even the Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. Those movies had a little bit, they were made for kids, but there's a little hint of like cynicism and some adult stuff in there too. And this one is much more kid friendly than those, I will say that. And that is one of those things that I did kind of miss. I did kind of miss a little bit of the dark edge of those movies, but it makes sense why they didn't go in that direction for this one. It being a younger Willy Wonka, him having that sort of idealism and optimism and wanting to be a startup, so that sort of tone fits for this kind of movie at least. And I thought it worked really well. It was very fun throughout, very zany, very cheesy at times, but kind of one of those where it's like it's very heartwarming at the end of the day. And I thought they did a fantastic job with a lot of the sets and the camera work and the musical elements of the other two movies are also musicals. It's one of those things that I always forget, that those other two movies are in fact musicals, and it's much more so in this movie. And a lot of the music numbers, I really found myself enjoying. Those can either be hit or miss. They can either be like very cringe-inducing or like very like, I don't know if this works. But for me, a lot of them worked, and they were all really fun. Especially a lot of the visual elements to this. A lot of fun sight gags, a lot of good comedy going on in the background. The frames are just filled with so much vibrancy and life. So I couldn't help but not have a good time with this movie.
That's good. And I'm glad you had fun with it. I think nostalgia's got the best of me. There were plenty of times in this movie I'm like, let's just speed this along. But also, I kind of was hoping we would see a little bit more of an established Willy in the end too, where we got to see him experiment with more candies that led him to his success, and we kind of did. But it was okay. Some of the songs worked for me. The rest of them I was like, they're not bad. Um, for me, they almost they didn't inspire me. They didn't like excite me or anything like that. So, but I've also just watched both movies this last week, just kind of prepping for it. And I mean, again, this is just me. I think the Gene Wilder one still, hits home today. Even then, again, even though it's not super accurate to the book or anything, like it is overall, but definitely some bits and pieces that are definitely movie based, but it still just works overall. And then this one referenced to all that stuff pretty well for the most part. Timothy Chalamet, yeah, being the idealistic Willy, where he's super optimistic about the world, and it's like, oh, buddy, you got a lot to learn. You haven't given those golden tickets yet, but you'll find out in like 20, 30 years. So having said all that, I do agree with you, Bern, as well, that the sets were great, the costume design was solid. And again, even though the musical numbers may not have jived with me, there was some good choreography and some good, they were entertaining nonetheless. And nonetheless, I can't talk right now. And I think it's definitely a solid kids movie for sure. Having said all that, I'm gonna give it a 3 out of 5. Definitely recommend it for the holiday season. I think it's solid. It's just hit and miss if you want to. Again, I know with the holidays and stuff, money's tight. So if you do want to see it on $5 Tuesday, totally fine. But if you want like a good, happy movie to rely on, this is definitely one for you.
Yeah, especially when taking a look at a lot of these later movies that are releasing within the next couple of weeks. A lot of more adult or heavier movies, the Oscar movies are definitely out in droves. So, out of the litter, this is definitely the more family friendly one, the one you can take, everyone with you and everyone can have like a good time with it. So, yeah, definitely it's a good release for this time of year, for all ages entertainment, I would say. So yeah, I mean, I pretty much agree with everything you said. The musical elements worked a little bit better for me. The one things I will criticize is, some of the VFX are a little noticeable, kind of take me out of the movie. Made me wish that they sort of try to go a little bit more on the practical route, especially when comparing it to, the Gene Wilder film, where a lot of that was very done in camera, and there's some elements where in this one it's like I felt like they should have done that a little bit more. But with how fantastical the movie is, it does kind of work it in completely pull me out of it. I wish it kind of stuck to the visual elements of that movie a little bit more. But yeah, having said that, Timothy Chalamet was great. All the other actors were a lot of fun too. Olivia Colman can do no wrong in my eyes. She's hilarious in this movie, and yeah, like I said, a lot of the elements in this movie really work for me. It's just at the end of the day, very charming, very heartwarming. Did almost bring a tear to my eye, So it's a lot of fun, and I think, like we said, all ages entertainment here. If you're really into musicals or if you're really into this character, I can see you walking away from this movie having really, really enjoyed it. So I know I did. So for me, this one is going to be a 4 out of 5 for me. I highly recommend it. But I'm a big fan of musicals and all the fantastical stuff. So this just really speaks to me, and I had a great time with it.
Well, Bern, I do respect that rating. I thought that was a very solid ranting right there. Um, it's very odd that you rated it higher than me. What is happening to the world? Maybe you're just falling for the holiday goodness. I don't know.
Underneath this hard, cynical shell is a gooey, chocolatey center, I guess.
I suppose so. But I also will say this. The other two standouts besides Olivia Colman in it was Keegan-Michael Key. He was hilarious, actually, in the small bits he was in, as well as Hugh Grant as an Oompa Loompa. I thought
Yeah.
all his side characters he's been playing the last several years have all been great. Like ever since The Gentleman, where he played like a supporting character, it's just been solid from then on. But
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, for those of you who caught it this weekend, what did you think of it? Were you looking forward to it? Did you love it? Was it for you? We'd love to know in the comments to keep that stuff going. But yeah, we're nearing the end of the season, guys. I hope everyone's having a good December so far. So until next time, stay bodacious and keep on ranting for us.
Absolutely, everybody. Be good, be safe, and as always, we'll catch y'all on the next one.